Hello everyone and welcome to In Contrast. My name is Alan.
And I'm Nisha.
And on this show we talk about movies and the books they're based on.
The catch is you watch the movie and I read the book, with a few exceptions.
Yes, and today we have another fun one. I don't know if you know, but it is spooky month time.
Spooky month!
It has arrived.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about another classic today, a horror classic, The Exorcist.
Yes, it is a 1971 horror by William Peter Blatty. Mm-hmm. We follow the demonic possession of 11-year-old Reagan, daughter of actor Chris McNeil, as what appears to be a psychiatric breakdown gets worse and worse, eventually threatening to kill the young girl.
That's right.
That's a pretty good synopsis. I wrote that myself.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The book was inspired by a 1949 case of a boy receiving a series of exorcisms that Blatty had heard about when he was, I think he was also attending Georgetown University at the time. Mm-hmm. Much of that story has been debunked.
Of course,
since
yes.
then.
It certainly made for an interesting story.
It did. It is a very interesting read.
It's about someone that goes by the name of Roland Doe. Obviously, that's not their real name, but...
Yeah, but I think it turned out that his first name was actually Roland or something like that.
I believe that, but then you have the John Doe,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. His last name was different, but I think the first name, they were like, keep it!
Yes, but that's what it's known as, is the exorcism of Roland Doe.
Yes. So look that up on Wikipedia if you want an interesting read.
Yeah. Happened in the 40s, apparently.
Yeah, 49. This was Blatty's fifth novel. He wanted to write this for a very long time, though. As I said, it was published in 71. Mm-hmm. But the case is from 49, and he heard about it in 1950. So he'd been wanting to write it for a very long time. At first, he was talked out of writing this story, but when he saw Rosemary's Baby in 1968, he decided to pursue it. He thought he could do better, basically.
Okay.
He didn't like the ending. He thought he could do a better ending.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, there's clearly, Rosemary's Baby is a very clear precursor to this.
Yeah, is it? Yeah. I have not seen Rosemary's Baby, and I don't plan to.
It's an excellent movie, but yeah.
I don't think I'd enjoy it.
Maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah. So he received a pretty huge advance for the pitch alone. It was something like $25,000, which is closer to like $250,000 today. That's huge for just a pitch and no novel.
Yeah, when are you getting an advance like that?
I don't know. But he basically just took drugs so he could write 16 hours a day and finish it in...
Naturally.
10 months. So yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So that was... the book was released in 1971. The movie followed shortly after in 73. Blatty was very involved in the production of the movie.
Yeah, screenwriter and producer, I believe.
Yes, he did. He did adapt it into a screenplay. He was already very well versed in filmmaking at this point. He had already written quite a number of screenplays. This is actually kind of nearing the end of his list of filmography that he worked on. So he only was involved in, I think, maybe 10 or a dozen movies, but he still, had some experience under his belt going into this. So I think at one point he was even in talks to direct the film.
Oh, wow.
Which I think at that point he had not directed yet. He had only produced and written screenplays, but, He would later go on to direct, and we'll talk about that later.
Cool.
They went back and forth on some ideas of who to pick to direct, but Blatty was pretty insistent on William Friedkin if he wasn't going to direct himself.
Oh, okay. What else has Friedkin done?
Oh, Friedkin's an absolute legend.
Is he?
Yeah, he's one of my favorite directors also.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's really well known for, at this point, French Connection was his big film that had come out like a year or two prior. But he'd go on to do To Live and Die in L.A., a bunch of other... he's Sorcerer is one of the great, just super tense movies of, people moving an inch and you panicking while you're watching. So really great films that he's made.
Yeah, you have this boyish awe about you all of a sudden. Oh my gosh, so clearly he's one of your favorites.
Yeah,
Got it.
He's an excellent director.
So the book was super well received. Obviously, he had been around the block a few times with everything, but the book received the Commonwealth Club Silver Medal for Literature, 2000 Audie Awards for narration by author, which I listened to, and he does do a pretty good job. And it also got a Saturn Award. Blatty himself received the Horror Writers Association Lifetime Achievement Award. And then, like I said, he's gotten a bunch of other stuff, but The Exorcist was, like, his big hit.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other stuff that was also big.
It's clearly the one that's, like, really stood the test of time. And I think that's in no small part. I mean, obviously the book was a huge thing when it came out. I wonder how much it would have kind of lasted in the cultural zeitgeist without the film. And especially, you know, one of the kind of the compromises with him not directing was that it would at least be featured in the film as William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist.
Yeah.
You know, that was part of the official title, so it definitely helped get his name out there a bit more.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, because it's definitely true that, like, amazing books just disappear.
Yeah.
And the only people that know about it are ones who are deep in literature. I mean, that happens with movies, too. But I definitely think The Exorcist would have held some kind of place, because there's a lot that's really, really good and amazing about this book. And the conversations it has are withstanding the test of time in a lot of respects.
Oh, I'm definitely curious to hear some of your thoughts about it. I mean, so, you know, you mentioned it was well received, but obviously there was probably some differences between, like, critical reception and general audience, and certainly some controversy surrounding it, given its subject matter.
Yeah, I actually couldn't find much about that. So, you know about it, so you tell us.
It became more of a thing with the movie than the book.
Okay,
just
maybe
because,
that's why.
just because the movie being released was such a cultural phenomenon. I mean, it's one of those things that's just kind of, it's been a legend that I feel like I've heard about since as early as I can remember. You know, my parents had their own stories about going to see The Exorcist, or their friends going, or, like, it was like a big cultural touchstone moment in their life. That they would, you know, continue to talk about decades later. So, you know, I still just remember being a little kid, like, long before I would ever be able to actually watch the movie, hearing my dad talking about, you know, going to the theater, people lining up outside, you know, then half the audience leaving during the movie after a difficult scene. You know, he talked about, I mean, there was just so many legends, and at some point it becomes hard to separate truth from, you know, the kind of the hype around it. But, you know, he'd talk about that, at least he claims he saw that theaters would hand out barf bags with the tickets. You know, there's talk that some theaters had, like, medical paramedics on staff, like, waiting for people because people were having these, like, physical reactions to it.
Yeah.
So just all these things mixed together, I think, really just skyrocketed this into, like, legendary status.
Yeah, I think regardless of if those are true, it definitely deserves that. But, yeah, that sounds a lot like some of the very first films that came out. Like, there's the one with the train coming straight at the camera.
Yeah.
And apparently people were, like, fainting and screaming and stuff like that because they'd never seen anything like that.
And that's what it is. It's like we're so used to that kind of thing now, but it's because of films like this, you know, coming out beforehand, so...
Yeah. And there is very hard subject matter and some pretty scenes that are even today still pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But I think... the book handles them actually pretty well. And I saw the movie a while ago, and it seemed like the movie handled them okay, too.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I understand, the movie tones down the book's description of things, which obviously reading about something and having it shoved in your face visually can be two very different experiences, you know? So it can probably get away with a little more description on that front. Yeah, there's just a lot in the film, even though it's toned down.
Yeah, so I'll actually dive into this a little bit, but I found that Blatty's description of the events, while they were graphic, were not gratuitous. Mm-hmm. you would not linger on things. He was very focused on the emotional toll. Mm-hmm. So we would spend a lot of time seeing the emotional impacts and feeling those emotional impacts, whereas these really grotesque scenes were vivid in some ways, but they were not drawn out. They were not overdone. And they were not... The point wasn't to gross you out. The point was to make you feel something.
Right.
So he lingered in those just the right amount, which was really not long. It was like he gave you the information and moved on. You don't need him to describe things in horrific detail.
Right.
But things do happen more often. Obviously, it's a longer format than the movie, and there are more things that happen. But yeah, he focuses on the emotional toll with, we watch Chris having mental breakdowns. We watch doctors struggling, Damien, struggling with his own feelings and trying to figure... It's a very emotional book.
Yeah.
So while it is known for its gore, or not even gore, but like these pretty horrific scenes, it's focused on the emotion.
Yeah, and that's what it seems like Blatty was really focused on is the characters and how they were experiencing this whole situation, and that's obviously less of a present factor in the film. It does still do a lot of really good setup with the time it has. It's a little over a 2-hour movie. But it does a lot of good setup, especially in the beginning. You're kind of jumping back and forth, like kind of seeing a day in the life with the McNeils and seeing, Father Karras and going back and forth between them. And you're seeing, kind of the juxtaposition of, Chris and Reagan's relationship being very sweet, Reagan being just a very normal girl. It really highlights that in a very short amount of time. And shows that they generally have a pretty good relationship. There's definitely some reading that can be done into Chris as a mother, and like if she's too distant or blah blah blah. But we'll get to that. But and then on the other hand, dealing with Karras, with his mother, it does really set up these characters well. But it doesn't delve into so many of the details throughout the discovery process. And like you said, not only are we dealing with a shortened telling in the film just because of the nature of the medium, but it actually shortens the timeline of the whole story.
Okay.
So I think in the book, it's taking place over several months.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, maybe like 6 months or something. And in the movie, it doesn't give you exact timelines, but it definitely feels more like maybe a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I'll say that a lot of that time in the book, they get away with saying, like, weeks passed.
Okay, yeah.
So there is kind of that element of, like, yeah, you can make it the next day, because in the book it's nothing more than a sentence. Right. Which it does add to the story in the sense that you go, wow, this is going on for a long time.
Right, because the longer it's going on, they still don't have answers. She's getting worse and worse. I mean, that does make it a worse experience for everyone involved.
Exactly. But taking it out is by no means detrimental to the story.
Right.
Like you mentioned, the movie jumps around, and the book does too. But very notably, the book is written in omniscient, meaning that within chapters, we jump from head to head.
Oh, okay.
Which
that's interesting.
Can be kind of confusing and difficult to read. I think Blatty does a good job. But very notably, we are never in Reagan's head. Mm. And I think that kind of makes her... She's trapped. We're locked out of her. We're feeling Chris's struggle of, like, we can't even communicate with her, despite being able to jump from Karras to Chris to McNeil to Carl to Willie to this. Like, we literally see basically every single character's perspective except for Reagan.
Right. And ostensibly the main character.
yes, the most important character to the whole story.
Yeah, of course.
And I think it's really, like, I didn't realize that until the end, but I was just, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Because if you're in her head, you immediately know the answer.
That's true. Yeah, because that's the whole point, is the mystery of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially in the book, it feels, from what I understand, like that he went much more into kind of the figuring it out portion, Like, there's a whole series before you get to the ultimate, exorcism. They try every other route imaginable to figure out this issue. They're definitely going the medical, the psychological route. And so there's a lot more of that explored in the book, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, it's fascinating because I think also there's this idea that when we see something else suffer, so often we want to like take that away and take it on ourselves. Like, I don't want to see you suffer. I wish I was suffering instead. And we are forced to watch an 11-year-old girl suffer. Mm-hmm. And we see so many people who want to do the same thing, and we want to do that for this poor, innocent young child.
Yeah.
And especially at the time, a girl, gender stereotypes are real. Mm-hmm. So she would have been perceived as even more innocent and needing of saving.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just like you want to take it away from her, and you can't even get in her head.
Right. Yeah, so that kind of makes me think about the casting for this film. It was definitely an interesting process that they went through. But, you talk about kind of, that idea of self-sacrifice and having to see such an innocent person go through this. And, I mean, in no small part in the film is that effective because of those, like, initial scenes that I'm talking about between Regan and her mom. Linda Blair does such an excellent job of being that sweet, innocent little girl. I mean, she is only 12 at the time of filming this. But then is also able to flip that switch as the film goes on. It's just one of the like kind of legendary child performances of all time.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, up till this film, she was completely unknown. I think she had done like a couple commercials or something. Like that was pretty much it. Maybe a small part in something else. But yeah, that was one of the big things. There was a lot of back and forth between Blatty and Friedkin in the studio about who do we hire. There were a lot of big names thrown around. Blatty and Friedkin seemed to mostly be on the same page that they didn't want super well-known people because it would, kind of color the audience's perception of the characters and things. So, they ended up going with a lot of unknown people. I always, of course, like to mention some of the names that were thrown around that were interesting. So, in place of Linda Blair, one of the people who was in the conversation was Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, she would have been good too, I think.
Yeah, that would have been one of her very, very early roles. I definitely think she could have handled it, but her mother was uncomfortable with the subject matter in the role, so... Which
is very fair. It's one of those roles that it's like, wow, you let your kid do that.
Well, I mean, it's also that was another one of the things that my father would grow up telling me about and has also become legend of its own, is the effect that this film had on Linda Blair going forward.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, have you not heard much about that?
Not really.
It was psychologically challenging for her.
Of course.
It definitely affected her throughout her life. She's written and spoken about it quite a lot over the years.
Okay.
Not that... There were some questionable things about the way the set was run, for sure, as is almost always the case on these, kind of 60s and 70s movies.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so I love William Friedkin as a director, but he definitely made some questionable choices.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever actively put anyone in danger. But it definitely didn't help the psyche of a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, maybe that she could have been protected and coached and had help.
It's not entirely his fault. Some of it is just the subject matter. Again, it was always going to be a heavy role. But yeah, it went on to be pretty psychologically damaging for her, and even physically. There were a couple of injuries that both her and the mother had on set that continued to cause them problems throughout their life. So.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I actually think that the history of this podcast, or this podcast, the history of this book and the movie and the adaptation and everything could genuinely be its own podcast. There's so much cool information, and there was a Times whole like issue about it or something like that, or it was the main feature. It's just, there's so much cool stuff about this that like you're gonna miss something.
Yeah. Again, there's so much legend around it, and both the production and afterwards. I mean, there's many people who legitimately believe that the production of the movie was cursed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Including, I mean, Friedkin himself would kind of, lean into that a little bit. And a lot of people believe that it was, a large part of it was manufactured by the studio, of course, just to, they saw what they had, especially given that, they did one test screening of this movie and, like, a bunch of the audience just ran out screaming. And I think that kind of colored the way that they decided to move forward with it.
I mean, that's like, you gotta capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so big, is these legends and stories that may not be true.
Yeah.
But that's part of what marketing is. I mean, that's kind of like Blair Witch Project, Obviously, it's a little bit different, but how you market it matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, let's run down the cast of the main characters. And
Okay.
we obviously talked about Reagan. That's the 11-year-old girl who is possessed. You said she's Linda Blair, right?
Yes, that's right.
Then next we have Chris McNeil. That's Reagan's mother. She is the actor, and she wants to also be a director. Who is that in the movie?
Yeah, she's played by Ellen Burstyn.
Okay. Next is Damien Karras. He is the Jesuit priest, come psychiatrist, come professor at Georgetown University, who in the book has like 2 chapters and then disappears for like half the book.
Is that right? Really? Okay, yeah, because he's such a central feature.
Yeah. Who's that?
He's played by Jason Miller.
Jason Miller. I thought that was really good casting, actually.
Yeah, no, he's pretty excellent.
And actually, I think out of a lot of the main characters, if I remember correctly, only the actor who plays Chris and Linda Blair who plays Reagan are still alive.
Oh,
I think basically everyone else has died.
Curse?
Yeah. Curse. I think the curse is called old age.
Cursed!
Cursed! We have Sharon, Chris's secretary and Reagan's tutor. Willie and Carl, who are the live-in help. Burke, the director, who's totally alive for the whole book.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And Kinderman, the detective. Who is basically comic relief. But he does have a lot of other stuff.
He's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's not a serious person.
He's not. Actually, in the book, he has some pretty good serious moments.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't read anything specific about this, but just from, what I've seen and how he's talked about it, and then what ends up happening in the following movies and sequels and things, I think that probably William Peter Blatty did not really think of Kinderman as quite unserious as he's portrayed in the film.
Yeah, but I think that was like a choice they had to make also because of time and constraints. And I think they did a great job because it is basically like a whole nother storyline.
Right.
And you just have to cut down.
Yeah, he does this whole, all this detective work and this whole investigation and it's just not really present, outside of a couple conversations with him in the film. But essentially, what I understand is that the whole tone of that whole kind of side story is what becomes Exorcist 3.
Oh, okay.
Which is written and directed by William Peter Blatty.
Yeah.
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 So.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
It was based on its own book as well. That was kind of a follow-up, but it just I think that's how he got that tone of the detective story into the Exorcist film universe,
Yeah, so we probably won't get too much into Kinderman then because his story is not too present in the movie. So I just want to say that the way he's portrayed in the book is that he acts like this bumbling, goofy guy who's way out of his depth. Like, you almost are like, are you really a detective? And then he just, it's like a light switch.
Yeah.
He's, in his office, and you're like, oh, you are disarming people.
He's like Columbo.
Yeah.
That's the Columbo method.
Okay, yeah. So it's really, really cool. And you see things like he asks Chris for her autograph and he goes, oh, it's for my daughter. And she's like, okay, what's your daughter's name? And he's like, well, it's for me.
I lied. It's for me.
It's for me. And then
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, she gives it to him and she's like, cool, I got her fingerprints.
Uh-huh.
Or I got her handwriting.
Right, yeah. He's kind of slick in his own way.
Yeah, so it is that he knows he's bumbling. That's entirely on purpose. Yeah. But he routinely asks everyone to go to movies with him. And
he
that's
gets the best passes.
Yeah, I get the passes. So yeah, it's great. I really loved it.
I really identify with him.
Yeah.
On a deep spiritual level,
Yeah, because you buy movie
He's complaining, the missus, she gets tired, she doesn't like to go. I hate to go alone. I like to talk about the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that is where he's like truly a goofball.
My brother.
Yep, that's you and Kinderman. I also, do they go much into Willie and Carl's daughter in the movie?
Not at all.
Okay, so I'll just run over that real quick. In the book, we have Willie and Carl have a daughter who Willie believes is dead. Mm-hmm. And Carl knows is alive.
Interesting.
And she's struggling with drug addiction. By the end, she does end up going into rehab. But that is one of the things the demon uses against them to torment them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't involve any of those characters very much in the film. They're there, but they're really just kind of, for a quick dialogue or something.
Yeah, and I mean that still makes for a good story.
Yeah, they didn't need to be any more present, I don't think.
No, absolutely not. So, the story starts in Iraq, northern Iraq, and we have an archaeologist who people are like, oh, be safe. And trying to, they can feel something's going on. He's seeing talismans around and all this stuff. He's seeing signs. And something is coming. And they discuss a little bit about the demon Pazuzu, who is a quote-unquote real demon from Mesopotamia.
What are you trying to imply?
As in, he comes from real mythology. He's not an invented demon. But yeah, there are people who have wards against the demon and all this stuff. And we see that this archaeologist knows something is up. Mm-hmm. And then we leave the archaeologist, which is very similar in the movie, I believe.
Yeah, that's how it opens. I mean, it's a little more clear. You're saying you're talking about him very vaguely.
Yeah.
Is that how he's presented in the book?
Yeah, I felt like you really didn't know who he was or anything like that.
Because obviously you don't know everything about him in the movie, but it does make clear that he is a priest, and that he's he's speaking Arabic, so he's clearly been there for quite a while.
Yeah, he definitely has been there for a while.
Yeah.
But I would say overall there's a lot of mystery around his character and what this even means.
All right, well, let's keep the mystery alive.
Let's keep the mystery alive. So, like you said, there are these moments where we see Chris and Reagan very sweet together in their relationship. But basically, immediately, we start experiencing weird things. Chris thinks there are rats in the attic. Mm-hmm. She's hearing tapping and stuff like that and asks Carl to go set traps. Burke, the director, is also around being a bumbling drunk. No rats are caught.
Yep.
But we continue to hear this tapping. And then, again, really early on, Reagan starts using this Ouija board to talk to Captain Howdy, who I'm so sorry, but I'm going to call him Uncle Howdy at some point, which is a wrestling character.
It's
obviously, obviously based on Captain Howdy.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
That's just if your child starts talking about a Captain Howdy, right then and there, we got to put a stop to this.
Yeah. Oh, and notably, Howdy is very similar to Reagan's father, who is Chris's ex-husband. The name, he is Howard.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, Howdy is very similar to Howard.
I don't think I realized that.
Yes.
But yeah, so we start, she's still acting pretty normal, but things around are getting weirder, like you said. So yeah, they're playing with this Ouija board. Reagan starts kind of complaining about her bed shaking.
Yep.
Which, she of course means very literally, and Chris is just like, oh, she's nice about it to Reagan, but then is like, why is my daughter lying all the time now?
Yeah, and she thinks it's like attention seeking or something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but she's being, a good mom and not calling her daughter out, but, trying to be supportive and be like, well, okay, you can sleep in my bed, and then tucking her into her own bed later and stuff like that. We then go on to meet Damien. Mm-hmm. And we basically see that he's having like a crisis of faith, and he's like I guess morally gray character, kind of. Yeah,
kind of.
Or like, I guess you'd say he's morally gray as a priest, but if he was not a priest, he would not be morally gray.
Yeah.
So this part of the book is told like all out of order, but you're basically learning his whole backstory, and about, his mom and how he became a priest, and he has some guilt over becoming a priest instead of like a doctor or something, and being able to support his mother better. But his mother is still alive at this point.
Yes, but she seems to be going through like dementia or something like that. So yeah, he's trying to figure out how to best take care of her.
Yes, exactly. And then in the book, we jump back to Reagan and Chris, and Chris is being a good mom and trying to get her daughter help and speaking with doctors. And the doctor diagnoses Reagan with ADHD, basically. Mm-hmm.
Loads her up on that Ritalin.
Yep. All that Ritalin. We love it.
You know who else loves Ritalin?
Me.
The devil.
Oh. Well, I may have taken something similar to Ritalin right before this, but that's because it's prescribed for me.
We prepared for this in very different ways for this conversation. I got my holy water ready, and you performed your rituals with the devil.
Okay, but is your holy water actually tap water?
No.
Okay.
It's this white monster that I've been sprinkling you with throughout the conversation.
I think those are the chemicals in it making my skin burn.
Oh, right. It's the taurine, sorry.
Yeah. Then we have the party. Mm-hmm. And Chris has been planning this party. She hosts a party. It's going well. It's going great. People are discussing Black Mass. Which is like, seems like a total downer for a party with a bunch of priests. But she learns about Damien, who she hadn't seen earlier, but she learns about who he is.
Right.
And then Reagan walks downstairs and just opens the floodgates and pees on the carpet, just standing there, which is exceptionally hard to do.
She micturated on the rug, dude.
Micturated? What the heck is micturated?
It's what they say in The Big Lebowski about the people being on the rug.
Okay. Big Lebowski, inspired by The Exorcist. After this, Chris finally sees the bed shaking. And she's like, oh, that's the bed shaking.
Like, oh, she actually means the bed is shaking.
Yeah, she's very confused about that. But I think, like, in the movie, that's a really cool scene, and I feel like it's basically accurate to the book from what I remember. And there's like the image of her just standing there and just like peeing on the rug. Yeah, it's just exactly how it is in the book.
Just like the look of shock on everyone's face.
Yeah, and someone has to tell Chris. They're like, I think we have a guest, and she like turns, and Reagan's like, ah, and then just pees on the rug.
Yep. Yeah, so I think this is kind of the portion where they, use some of this kind of, these medical procedures that they're trying to figure out what's wrong with her. They show some of it in the movie, not all of it that's present in the book. So basically, to kind of summarize it, you feel free to add, anything of note, obviously, but they start to think maybe she has a brain lesion of some kind. Something that's literally like affecting her brain and causing her erratic behavior.
Yeah, they also mention epilepsy.
Mm-hmm. So they keep trying, different x-rays and things, and everything is coming back with nothing.
Yeah, literally, this is a healthy, normal child, but for some reason, she's calling the doctor a cocksucker.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the way that the doctor, I don't know if it's like this in the movie or in the book, but he just like very gently approaches it with Chris.
Yeah.
And he's just like, your daughter has a very colorful vocabulary.
Yeah, it's exactly like that in the book. And Chris is like, what do you mean? And he she uses some pretty bad words.
Yeah.
Especially by American standards.
Right.
And Chris is like, what the heck? That's not my daughter at all.
It's like, I have never heard her say anything like that.
Yeah. This is also about the time that Damien goes to his mother's funeral, or we find out that she dies.
Right.
And he is again upset, racked with guilt, dealing with this dilemma of what he should have done, how he could have saved her. Foreshadowing.
What?
And we're learning about churches also being desecrated.
Yeah, which
and
is another kind of small part in the movie, but it is present.
Yeah, and that's kind of reoccurring, and it is quite small throughout the book as well. In fact, I would say it's too small in the book.
Really?
They should have just taken it out or explained it more, because it's kind of like, who was doing this? Was Reagan sneaking out of her bed and doing this? Was someone else desecrating? That's not ever solved.
Yeah, it is kind of a strange thing. I mean, it works in the film because it's such a small thing that it just kind of gives you some good imagery and then makes all the characters a bit more on edge.
Yeah.
Because they feel this ominous presence in the air,
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't really go into any of the details about it.
Yeah. So, does Mary Jo give Chris a book?
Who is Mary Jo?
And what is a book? Okay, Mary Jo is someone who was at the party, and she comes back later to give Chris a book on occult stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that does happen.
Okay, but that's just another facet of something that people discover and read and go, oh, there are similarities, basically. But that's also when it happens. So, things are getting wild already.
Yeah. Everyone's just totally baffled.
Yeah.
Reagan's getting worse and worse. At this point in the movie, after the first couple rounds of x-rays, she's basically completely possessed.
Yeah, it happens really fast.
Yeah, she had been kind of going back and forth and would only, she'd have a lot of clarity moments and then, would have her little outbursts and stuff. But at this point, it's basically the opposite.
Yeah, we're getting little peeks into it of her still being there.
Yeah.
And does it happen at this point, the scene? With the crucifix?
Oh.
Because I think it happens twice in the book.
Yeah, it's a little bit after this, but yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to just talk about that a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Because we're here. And this is a scene where Reagan, or the demon, I guess, uses a crucifix to effectively rape Reagan. Mm-hmm. And she's a little bit aware in this scene.
Yeah.
And she's like, what's happening? He wants to kill me and all this stuff. Fortunately, the demon really takes over when the scene is happening.
Right.
So you're not seeing this little girl screaming and shrieking, which I think is handled so much. That would be such a horrific scene. But like I said earlier, Blatty handles it super well. And we hear about it happening. It gets maybe 2 sentences. And we deal with the repercussions of how horrific that was. Mm-hmm. We know how horrific that is. You don't need to show us.
It's true, yeah.
And so I think that's a really good scene, especially because those are kinds of themes that I am quite sensitive to and can really upset me.
Right.
And I was worried going into this book, but I actually did think it was handled well.
Oh, good.
So I really didn't feel like it was gratuitous or anything like that. It was, here it is. These are the repercussions and what you're feeling.
Because obviously it's meant to be extremely shocking, but yeah, it doesn't have to dwell super long to get that across.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know. if they say someone broke their leg, you know it hurts.
Yeah.
You don't have to describe it. So this is also why the doctors are there. They take Chris to go run some tests, or she wants to go with them. Sharon is supposed to watch after Reagan.
Yep.
But she can't get what she needs from the pharmacy. They won't deliver it. Fortunately, Burke arrives and is gonna watch after Reagan while Sharon runs out to the pharmacy.
And I don't think we mentioned that, obviously him and Burke and Chris have a working relationship, but they are also kind of seeing each other romantically as well.
Potentially. In the book, it's heavily denied.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, in the movie, basically, Reagan just kind of teases her about it.
Yeah.
Like, are you in love with him? Like, that kind of thing. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
But so I guess they never outright stated, but it's very heavily implied.
I think also Burke is such a drunk.
Yeah.
That's some bridge Chris would never quite cross.
Yeah, maybe
For
so.
her, that's like a hard line. Mm-hmm. But she is quite tender, I would say. And she is loving, and he's the one she goes to, and she's okay with that. So there are elements of that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that she would ever marry him or let him move in so long as he's a drunk. But sure. Burke is the director, if we hadn't mentioned that.
Yeah, you did mention that.
Oh, okay. So Chris returns home and there's no one there. Mm-hmm. And she's like, that's weird. And she and Sharon talk about it. And they're like, that's weird. And then, like, hours later, the second unit director calls Chris to say, hey, Burke is dead. Mm-hmm. Okay, hold on. He's found at the bottom of a staircase.
Like, right there.
Right outside their house.
Like, you can see it.
You can see it. How did they not hear the ambulance?
I don't know.
See the commotion. Like, no one was gone that long. Sharon ran out to the pharmacist to come back. They talk about this, that she was gone for like maybe half an hour.
Right, yeah, they're very clear about that.
Yeah.
They would definitely still be out there.
Yeah.
Scraping stuff up.
Yeah, get his brains off the pavement. I just don't understand how they did not, like if there was an ambulance behind my house, I would go look.
Yeah. I'm baffled by that as well.
Okay, so I'm glad that you also had that, because I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, the only thing is, like, you have to, even as the viewer, kind of piece it together until they later talk about it, which is just like, Chris gets home, there's no one there, she goes into Reagan's bedroom, she's seemingly asleep, her window is wide open, and then she immediately finds out that Burke is dead.
The window is open.
The window's wide open.
Does she close the window?
Yes.
Oh my god. That's the window that he falls out of. How does she not look out there and go, that's a lot of people?
Well, because it seems like there's no one there anymore. I don't know, which of course doesn't make any sense, but
crime scenes do not get cleaned that fast. No. And they took this seriously, so they would have photographed the body and everything.
Yeah. Well, especially given the state that they find him in. I mean,
oh my gosh.
They basically say that he died from a fall, but technically speaking, he was already dead because his neck was completely turned around.
Yeah, his head was the wrong way. And which is funny, because I actually think a lot of this book does things super well with, like, the EEGs, the X-rays, the lumbar puncture. They feel very, like, genuine. And, like, these things take time, or, like, we have to review, or we're sending... Like, that stuff feels real.
The angiography scene has been used for medical training.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just... So how is that, like, the one thing they complete... Like, and that could be how she learns about it. Like, that would have been okay. So, I
don't know. Anyway.
Moving on. Reagan crab walks into the kitchen.
Yep. Which is famously a scene that was taken out of the original cut of the film and then later put back.
Does she lick Sharon's ankle?
No.
She does that in the book. So when you watch the movie, turn everything up like just one notch. Uh-huh. She crab walks in and then she licks Sharon's ankle. Like, that's the book.
Right.
It's just a little bit worse.
And they got someone that was like an Olympic gymnast or something to do that scene as Reagan's double.
I was about to ask, is this a scene where she got injured because she didn't know
Yeah, they made Linda Blair do that.
Yeah, because it's not just like the crab walk where you like do, it's like the whole arched back.
Yeah,
like,
all the way back, like down the stairs.
Yeah. So Reagan's still complaining about Captain Howdy, saying he's hurting her. And this is where she starts saying, now on my.
Okay.
Which later is played backwards.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And there's more weirdness with doctors and prying her grip off of people's crotches.
Yeah.
And then we get Kinderman. And he...
Well, I do briefly want to say, so they, continue. We don't have to go into all the details of the medical procedures and stuff, but they, continue trying all these scans, and there's just, like, they're getting higher and higher in kind of the medical hierarchy here of, like, getting these, like, really advanced teams of doctors and stuff, and so it's just noteworthy that one of the most gruesome scenes in the whole movie is this cerebral angiography that she goes through so that they can scan her brain. It's really gross, and it's actually the scene that's most quoted as the time that people would leave the theater, or the thing that people said was the most difficult to watch. Because they basically put this needle, into her neck, and it's just like spurting blood out, it's, as I said, considered very medically accurate, but yeah, they don't really pull any punches with that one, and it's difficult to watch.
Yeah, so instead of that, they do the lumbar puncture, I think.
Right.
And the lumbar puncture is just like, boop, done.
Yeah.
But when you have the visuals, it's like, why not?
Yeah, you might as well.
But then we get Kinderman.
Yes, Kinderman. He just wants to go to the movies.
He just loves her as an actress. He wants to go to the movies and all this stuff. And obviously, like we said earlier, he's playing with her. He's trying to get evidence. Every time you see Kinderman, he is trying to get something.
Yep.
Or he's trying to go to the movies with you. One or the other. But I will not linger on that too much. And now we get the jogging scene.
Okay.
Which is basically Damian Karras, the actor who plays him, dressed up like Rocky when he runs up the stairs in Philadelphia.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is, I guess, how people actually dressed.
Yeah,
But he can see through Kinderman immediately.
Uh-huh.
And they're talking about Black Mass, and Damien has an altar card with fingerprints and stuff like that on it. But obviously, like, every priest has touched it.
Yeah.
But they have a typewriter sample, they have fingerprint samples, but they basically bond, and Kinderman's like, you want to go to the movies? And Damien's like, no, maybe later.
Yeah, another time. Rain check.
I really loved this scene in the movie, though.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Yeah. This is where we have a time pass.
Yeah.
The first chunk of weeks, I think it's 2 weeks, so it's been probably 1 week, we're heading into 3 weeks or whatever. Chris has been offered a directing job, and she's been wanting to direct for so long, but she has to decline it.
Yeah.
Which I think this is a really cool place to kind of stop and talk about how throughout this whole book and movie, I think Blatty does a really good job of exploring how predominantly women struggle with balancing their careers and their dreams with being mothers. Mm-hmm. And how her ex-husband never appears. Mm-hmm. He's sometimes on the phone, but like she has to call her ex-husband to remind him that it's her birthday.
Yeah.
Reagan's birthday.
Right.
And it's very interesting because it is talked about a little bit, like with the demon taunting Chris about this. But I thought Blatty actually took a very interesting approach of like, Chris is being such a frickin' good mom.
Mm-hmm. She's really trying,
She declines the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Despite having medical hesitance, she's taking Reagan to see so many doctors and advocating and standing up for her daughter.
Yeah.
And struggles herself with the guilt of having followed her dreams. And did this cause that? Or like, how did that happen? Is she a bad mom? when literally everything you see her do is her being like an imperfect human.
Yeah.
An amazing mother.
And I do think that the film is slightly less generous with that aspect. It's not ever, like, trying to paint her as a bad person, but it doesn't include, like, her turning down the director job or anything like that. I mean, it does show her genuine care towards, you know, Reagan and her condition, and she, you know, like you said, she's very much an advocate for her. Does not accept, like, the kind of passive answers that she's getting, which is basically no answer at all, you know? So it does show her fighting for it, but there is a read to it that could make you think that she's an absent mother, and it is a little unfair to the character. So I'm not going to say that it treats her poorly at all, but it's probably, like, slightly less empathetic towards her.
And that might have been one of those things that when they were cutting down the script, it was unfortunately something that got cut out.
Yeah.
And it's read poorly, and that's not what they intended, is what I'm going to guess. Because I really think, based on this reading, that Blatty portrayed her as a loving, caring, good mother.
I agree. I don't think that there's any implication otherwise, at least not meant to be.
Yeah, not intentionally, yeah.
But it has led to, which, I mean, take this with a grain of salt, because there has been just about every opinion that you could possibly pull out of this film, you know, it's been written about.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a take that I've seen more than once, is that she's like an absent mother, and that is part of what causes this whole situation.
Yeah.
Not something that I agree with at all, but in other words, there's enough of that kind of leeway in the film that some people are able to read it that way.
And there are moments where Chris worries that, is Reagan lonely out here and all this stuff. Like, she is taking her daughter around all these places, but you simply can't accuse her of being an absent mother when the father is off on a yacht during her birthday. Like, there is that clear juxtaposition of, even if he's never mentioned in the movie, where the heck is her father? Yeah. So, no, she's not an absent mother. No. She's doing her best.
And even if Chris makes mistakes...
She's human.
She's human, and she's clearly trying, and she's always worried that she's making a mistake, you know?
Yeah, so she's a really, really good mother, and I think that she also really encapsulates that when you have very difficult, especially chronic conditions... and you go from doctor to doctor to doctor, and there's just no answer. And sometimes you just get so frustrated, and you're like, is this just a demon? Like, it also really captures that very well, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it does. And, I mean, even with the trimmed down, you know, version of this part of the story, the film really does get across that just absolute, just like, what the fuck is happening, you know? Where you're just, like, totally at the end of your rope.
Yeah.
And you've exhausted every other possibility.
Yeah.
Which, to me, I think makes the exorcism and the spirituality portion much more engaging, you know?
Yeah.
That, like, there's no other answer at this point. And so I think this is worth noting, where now she's kind of reached, like, we have the best doctors in the country working on this, and we still don't know.
Yep.
And they basically come to the idea that they're the ones that introduced this idea. It had been talked about a little bit already, but they're the ones that really introduced this idea to Chris of performing an exorcism. And they're not necessarily saying this because they believe she's possessed, but they believe that Reagan believes she's possessed. So they think that it could be a good exercise, you know, to help kind of free her from her own mind. So it's a possession in a way, not an actual demon, you know. But they are suggesting that maybe that's the next step, because if she believes she's possessed, an exorcism might fix it.
Yeah, exactly. The power of suggestion.
Exactly.
And this is, you know, this is also, you're seeing Chris get more and more on the verge of basically a nervous breakdown, which, again, very progressive, done very well. Almost hard to talk about because it's woven in so well that you don't see these, like, big markers. You're like, it's just getting worse.
She kind of, you know, screams at them at this point. And And then very calmly says, like, okay, so I should go to a witch doctor. Fantastic. And, just kind of moves on from there.
Yes, and it's worth noting that she's atheist.
Yes.
So she's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's definitely taken quite a lot to get her to this point.
Yeah. She, in the book, reads that book Mary Jo gave her about possessions and stuff, and is like, wow, there's a lot of similarities here. Mm-hmm. Kinderman appears again, and there's a bunch of stuff that is just, I don't think, in the movie, because it's him disarming Chris again, talking to Carl, because maybe Carl did it, but his alibis end up checking out. And then we get a crucifix scene 2.0, which if you thought the first one was bad, the second one is worse.
Yeah.
And I will not go into detail. Again, handled well, but Chris screams until she faints.
Yes. Which
is that nervous breakdown, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you really feel it coming, and then she just faints.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
imagine your young daughter screaming at you to let Jesus fuck you.
Yeah, it's worse in the...
I believe it.
It's worse. But again, handled very well.
Yeah.
We go on to meet Damien again. Mm-hmm. He's finally back.
Yep.
So he's like not there for a long time, but he's made an impression, and so has that archaeologist from the beginning. Mm-hmm. We remember them. But Chris has arranged to meet him because she knew he was a psychiatrist and a priest.
Right. That's really her goal here, is that he's the ultimate combo for her situation right now.
Yeah. And I would say Damien is very much a psychiatrist first.
Yeah. He makes that clear.
And he has been struggling with his faith.
Yeah.
So we know that.
Yeah, if he's probably the most doubtful of anybody involved about, the power of an exorcism or anything.
Yeah, and he's even concerned that will an exorcism make this delusion worse?
Right. Because he definitely thinks it's a delusion.
Yeah, but he does take her very seriously and does agree to help however he can. And he, so in the book, he's like, well, telekinesis has been documented. And I was like, okay, here we're getting a little off the wall. You're telling me telekinesis is real in the book? They're like, yeah, sometimes when you're going through something, having a mental breakdown, you can just fling a vase of roses across the room without touching it.
Are you saying you've never done that?
I've never done that.
Okay.
So that was kind of interesting, but it is a nice moment to be like, okay, we're breaking into fiction, and just kind of sit with the book and enjoy it.
Well, and that's actually a point I'd like to make that I found really interesting, is that obviously the way this is like visually presented is very extreme, and the combination of things might be something that is not based in reality. But Blatty made a point to only describe these things in ways that had been previously documented as actual medical conditions or some sort of psychiatric condition, and the way that people reacted to it.
Yeah.
So it does, it feels weird to say with the content that's happening here, but I mean, it is a lot of it based in reality.
Yeah, and you see throughout the whole book, even up until basically the last few chapters, they're like, but this can be explained by this. Mm-hmm. This can be explained by this.
Right.
They are able to explain everything through a scientific lens, but they're not getting the evidence that the scientific diagnosis is there.
Yeah.
Like the epilepsy is negative.
Right.
These other things are negative. So they are struggling to find these things.
It's just a really good way to kind of put it together, I think.
Yeah. So Damien is really involved in trying to figure out what's going on with this kid. And he's comes up with this neat idea that, you know what, if she's possessed, then holy water will do something, right?
Right. And at this point, it's also worth mentioning that he is very much approaching this from, okay, if we're going to do this, we have to have certain criteria to meet for the church to approve such a thing.
Yes, they explicitly talk about how the church says most exorcism times most possessions are actually psychiatric disorders.
Right.
So even the church that he works with, he's a Jesuit priest, has taken quite a liberal scientific stance.
Yeah.
Saying, you gotta rule out all of this other stuff first.
Yeah.
And then we'll think about it.
I mean, that's even when he's approached about an exorcism by Chris, she's like, what's the process for that? And his answer, I don't remember the exact quote, but he's basically like, I don't know, go back 500 years?
Yep.
Like, yeah, we don't do that anymore, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's like, no. But he comes up with a holy water idea. Mm-hmm. What he does is fill a thing with tap water, a little vial. He talks to the demon. I think he's recording her. Yeah, he's recording her. He's talking to her. He's trying to get information. And he's the first person to record her, which I think is interesting. But he is a psychiatrist. So he records the conversation and he eventually says, okay, I have a lot of information. I'm going to try this tap water. And he sprinkles it on her, and she starts, like, screaming. And by this point, I say she, but it's the demon. Mm-hmm. She's screaming, she's writhing, and then she, like, passes out. And he's like, well, it's just tap water. Mm-hmm. So it shouldn't have affected her, which means that it's a psychiatric condition.
Right.
And, he continues his investigation, though. He has the recording. He has all this stuff. And, there's analyzing the recording, which is where they discover the talking is backwards.
Right. He takes it to,
a
linguist. And, he's like, oh, what language is this? He's like, well, it's English. It's just backwards.
Yeah. And he goes to look at the EEG. And they see that even with certain conditions, there are patterns, and those patterns are lacking. Mm-hmm. Talking backwards is a sign of possession. Mm-hmm. Now on my is I am no one. Mm-hmm. And this is where pieces really start falling together. The pieces of the puzzle come together. I was going to say they fall apart.
Now, so what do we think is because it's not explained in the movie, maybe I missed something, but what is the reasoning that the tap water would have caused that effect?
I think there's this element, so it's not explained in the book.
Okay.
But there is this element of mind reading that is brought up later where Damien is speaking German, Latin, and French. And he asks the demon, how do you know these languages? How do you know Latin? And the demon is like, well, I was just reading your mind. Mm. So I do think there's also that element of the demon is aware and and knows what they're doing. And the longer they're sent down this wild goose chase, the longer it gets to torture Regan and ultimately get what it wants.
That makes sense, because he does mention that is a big strike against possession.
Exactly.
And against getting an exorcism approved, so... Yeah, okay, that does make sense.
Yeah. The big turning point, which really makes them go, oh, this is possession, is that Damien goes back to the McNeil's house in, the middle of the night on a call from Sharon. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you need to see this. I have not told Chris. Chris is asleep. And she, pulls open the front of Reagan's nightgown, and you see the words, help me, scrawled across her skin, appear across her skin in Reagan's handwriting, which they've all seen at this point. And they go, okay, that's possession.
Kind of hard to argue with that one.
Yeah. And you know how they say that it's really hard to get an exorcism and convince the church that? They immediately approve the exorcism.
Yes. I think that's the one right there.
Yeah, it's pretty, that's kind of like the Burke thing, where it's and I thought this was something else.
Well, something else that I'm not sure if it's present in the book or not, but you mentioned that, Kinderman comes back at this point, or just before all this, and this is kind of where he reveals to Chris that, hey, so everything is pointing to the fact that maybe your daughter pushed Burke out of the window.
Yeah, in the book, he really circumvents it by basically saying, well, I know it wasn't Carl,
right? But
I know he was pushed out of a window at these hours when no one was home.
Yeah.
And Chris, like, puts the pieces together.
Right, yeah. It's basically the same in the movie. He never outright says it, but he just kind of presents all of the facts that he has in a way that's kind of hard to refute.
Yeah. And he does, it's later on, but I'll touch on it. Now, he does go to Damien and say, what would you do, hypothetically? He loves saying hypothetically. It's so funny. If all this evidence, hypothetically, was pointing towards a little girl, hypothetically. And Damien says, I would leave it in the hands of a higher power. Basically relinquishing Kinderman of needing to arrest a girl who he knows is suffering. He's aware of her condition. Right. He's aware of the medical records.
Yeah.
So he knows. And he says, okay, he basically says, okay, I'll let you guys take care of it. Hypothetically.
Yeah.
But it's a very nice scene.
So yeah, they've now officially decided that an exorcism is the way to go. It's been approved.
Yeah, and you remember that archaeologist from the beginning of the book?
Who?
You know, the archaeologist.
No, who's that?
Well, he comes back, and this is the priest, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Father Marin. He arrives a day early, but he's clearly been expecting this, and he's ready. And we know he's a little bit sick. He's taking some pills. He's like, I'm going to start immediately, basically.
Yeah. And they bring him in because he has some amount of experience with this.
Yes. They say Damien can help, but they're like, you don't know what you're doing.
Right, because it seems like Karras kind of wants to lead the exorcism at first, right?
Yeah, I think he's kind of developed this need to save.
Yeah.
Shockingly. Need to save Reagan.
Yeah.
And there is a really beautiful scene of Chris looking at photos, and she like runs out of the room crying, and Damien sees their photos of Reagan, and he's like, I have to do this. But yeah, they bring in Father Marin. They get ready for the exorcism, and like, this is just so much stuff happens. The bed levitates. Reagan vomits on the priest, Father Marin, who the whole time is completely composed. Just like uses his like little scarf shawl thing. I know there's a name for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And like wipes it off his face and continues. And the bed is rocking violently. It's so freaking wild that Damien forgets to like participate in the prayer.
Yeah, he just kind of freezes a little bit, yeah.
And I think part of that also is his like psychiatrist side, where he's like, I want to analyze this.
That's true.
This is fascinating.
But he also seems quite shocked.
Oh, he's definitely shocked. One really cool thing in the book is that Damien feels Reagan's pulse at one point. And it's cool because, you know, the pulse is quickening and slowing, and like we're experiencing it with him. And that's obviously not something you can do one-to-one in the movie. But it was just really cool because then he feels like the pulse slow, and he's like, this is bad. Because he is like a trained doctor to an extent. And he knows that if they don't complete the exorcism soon, and he, you know, gets a second opinion on this, she will die.
Yeah.
This is actually quite late for like what we call a ticking time bomb to be introduced, but it's the perfect time.
Yeah.
This is the climax, and suddenly, oh shit, Reagan's gonna die.
Yeah, you don't really want it before this.
Yeah, it's not that this is gonna suck for her and Chris. She's gonna be tortured. Oh, she's about to die.
Yeah.
We knew there was the chance, but now it's coming. Now it's happening. And it's done very, very well. This takes about a week in the book.
Okay.
And Damien is like going and coming mostly there, doesn't really sleep a lot. Gets told off by Kinderman, you jog too much.
Okay.
And then Damien returns to the house one day, goes into the bedroom to find Father Marin collapsed on the floor. And it turns out he is dead.
Yeah.
And he sees the pills and very quickly realizes, oh, Father Merrin knew he was going to die. And the demon has actually been saying, you're going to lose this whole time to Father Merrin. So you're like, oh shit, he lost. Mm-hmm. This is literally like textbook how to write a climax for a book. It is just spot on. It is such a freaking perfect climax. Yeah. Unbelievably amazing. So good.
It's not afraid to kill some characters.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just so... The whole book they're talking about, especially Kinderman, talking about how Damien looks like a boxer. Like, he looks like Rocky. It's not an accident that he looks like 100%. Rocky. It's perfect actor for it in the movie, but... They keep talking about he looks like a boxer and he's done all this stuff. He's athletic, all this stuff. And downstairs, Sharon and Chris hear Damien. We don't see this whole thing. We hear it through them going like, come on, what, you can't handle, you need a little girl. Which again, the point of it being a little girl is that it's a girl. Gender stereotypes are real, you know. But he's literally goading them. Like, come on, hit me. Exactly. Like, if you were drunk in a bar and how you go, oh, what, you a big little girl? Like, he is doing that to the demon.
Yeah.
We hear the window smash. And then Chris and Sharon run upstairs and they're like, what's going on? And you hear Reagan go, Mommy, what's going on?
Mm-hmm. She's back.
She's back. And you see Damien lying at the bottom of the stairs with Sharon and Chris.
You can see it from the window?
Sharon and Chris can see this time.
That can't be right.
You see him lying at the bottom of the stairs, dying. A priest comes, who we've met before and we've seen before, and basically does his final confession. He's not talking a lot. But he looks so at peace. And then he dies. Mm-hmm. Do you know where the name Damien comes from?
Like the Omen, Damien? What do you mean?
Saint Damien is they say this in the book, in fact, so you know that it's going to happen, is a saint who I believe cured lepers.
Oh, okay.
And himself died of leprosy.
Ah. Okay.
So they say that really early on when Father Merrin gets there. They're like, where's Damien come from? And it feels like they're just making conversation and talking about Damien. And then he says that. Yeah. And you go, oh shit, Damien's going to die. Uh-huh. And it's so, oh my gosh, I'm about to cry.
You're really into this, my God.
This ending is so freaking perfect. Uh-huh. It is perfect.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it so much.
Yeah. You're going to have to bring us home with the epilogue because I need a minute to cry.
All right. Jesus. Well, yeah. So this is clearly the big climax, right? Like, this is about the last 30 minutes of the movie. And it's just an absolute, like, technical showcase, you know? I mean, it's nonstop. It's a thrill ride. It has just such a perfect demonstration of lighting and special effects and cinematography. It's just very, very well done. The camera is always exactly where it needs to be. You know, again, we're dealing with a lot of practical effects. This movie being made in modern day, you know, out of the right hands would be a whole different experience.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I mean, again, it's just an absolute showcase. And it starts from the iconic moment. I mean, one of the most iconic still frames from a movie of Father Merrin showing up in the dark, you know, in the lamp underneath the house.
Yeah.
Like, it just, I mean, my God, this is cinema.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just an amazing ending. Mm-hmm. It's like, really, if I taught a class on writing, I think The Exorcist would have to be on the curriculum.
Yeah. It's really well done. And I mean, again, the movie doesn't have every aspect of it, but it's just such a good mix of, like, you know, using familiar religious iconography and, you know, legend, and mixing the modern with the traditional, and having a great mystery, and, you know, just the character, like everything about it is just really well put together. It's a really good mix of things.
Yeah. And they end it all with a nice little epilogue. Which is basically Reagan and Chris are going back to LA, I think it is, where they actually live.
Yeah, that was always their plan.
Yeah, they're just in Georgetown to film a movie. And so they're leaving, and Reagan is like back to normal. She's just a kid again, and, you know, like she's taken too long in her room and all this stuff. It's really sweet. She sees the priest who did the confession for Damien comes to say goodbye, and she like is staring at his collar, and like you can see that there's something.
Yeah.
But she doesn't remember any of this,
No.
which is such a nice relief at the end of to be like, oh, thank God she doesn't remember. She just knows she was sick, and let's just leave it at that.
So this is, technically speaking, Linda Blair herself ended up worse than the character of Reagan.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't get to forget all of that.
Yeah, she does not get to forget. I hope she was able to get some good therapy, though. And
She was, yeah.
Come to peace.
Again, there is no shortage of conversation to be listened to from her about it. So, you know, if you're ever curious, it's easy to find.
Yeah. And the iconic ending of the book and the movie is basically identical, I believe. Kinderman shows up and asks Father Dyer if he wants to go see a movie.
Yep.
And Father Dyer says he's already seen this.
And Kinderman's eternal curse continues.
So the curse of Kinderman. Who really needs the exorcism?
Yeah. Poor Kinderman. Someday someone will go to the movies with you.
I know. And I honestly felt like Damien actually wanted to go to the movie with him.
I mean, he was a little distracted, you know?
Yeah. And I think Kinderman knew it, but Kinderman really likes Damien.
Yeah.
So really it's actually quite a sad story for Kinderman.
Yes.
But it's such a beautiful, beautiful... It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Ending.
No, it's good. It's really, really well done. And, you know, it was treated as such. The you know, it wasn't recognized super, you know, it didn't win a lot of awards and anything, but it won some important ones.
I mean, it got an Oscar, right?
It did, yeah. So Blatty got an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay, which is obviously, like, that's the number one for this podcast, right? That means you win.
Yep.
So that's great. And it was also the first horror film to ever be nominated for Best Picture. It didn't win, but it really opened the gates for it, because up to this point, horror had been viewed as just a schlocky kind of thing. I mean, Rosemary's Baby definitely helped. Like, not only tonally does it share a lot with this story, but it also, in the terms of, like, the progression of horror throughout film, it was kind of that precursor, and then this really opened the floodgates.
Yeah, I think this shows really well how horror can be such a good place to discuss hard issues.
It is.
I think it's particularly true for marginalized communities, like, you know, like women. You know, we talk about Chris struggling with, is she a good mom? And, like, how she has to advocate for her daughter, or taking the pain away from someone. Like, it's such a good medium for that.
It is. And that's something that I think more and more people have become aware of. Like, I mean, it comes with its goods and bads, right? Because now we've entered this space of, like, you know, you wouldn't have your Ari Asters without this film, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of entered that, God forbid me saying these words, elevated horror era that we've entered in, which has now made it, like, somewhat played out in ways, right? Like, I don't need another movie where there's, like, this thinly veiled metaphor for trauma, you know? Especially if you're not going to show me the trauma. And that's something that this movie does really well, is that the movie is the trauma.
Yeah, it's exploring it in the moment.
Right. You're not just, like, alluding to some past thing and you're haunted by it now. Like, that can be really fun, but it's way overdone now.
Yeah.
But this is definitely what has led to that kind of, progression throughout time. But it's really good at the same time because it, like you said, it allows you to explore some really heavy themes in really interesting ways. You know, in ways that both disconnect us from it so that maybe we're a little more open to seeing it, but at the same time draw the connection, Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this film definitely did a lot for horror.
Yeah, I think you should read the book. I think you'd really like it.
I agree.
I famously do not find the movie scary.
Yeah. Which is just crazy to me. I don't know. I was trying to think back to the setting when we watched it. Like, did we turn out the lights and everything?
I can't remember.
Because it was like, I also remember kind of feeling that way when I watched it with you. And then when I watched it this time again, I was like, no, that's insane. Yeah. This movie's scary as hell.
Yeah. I was not scared by the book either.
Okay. Maybe it's, and I think we've kind of talked about this before, maybe it's that I was raised in a religious upbringing and you were not.
Yeah, and also, like, any religion, outside of being, like, in the United States and just kind of being exposed to Christianity, most of the religion I was exposed to was, like, a lot of Hinduism and, like, Indian folklore and mythology. Yeah. But it wasn't really in a religious sense. It was in, like, a mythological sense. Right. So, I was raised atheist, and so I do think maybe there is a little bit of that.
Yeah, because this is the kind of stuff that was just, like, instilled to me as the scariest thing growing up. Yeah. When you go and hear about fire and brimstone every single Sunday, this kind of stuff scares the shit out of you. Yeah.
I know for sure that a lot of I think we also had different interactions with Christianity.
Yeah, definitely.
In that, like, I went to an Episcopalian high school, and we had Mass 4 times a year. It wasn't that much. And, like, you could get out of it with, like, a note from your parent being like, I don't want my kid to go to Mass. No one really did because it wasn't a big deal. You were not forced to participate. And we had, like, an amazing chamber choir, so it was really nice to listen to them sing. But even, like, those sermons were not fire and brimstone. They were about, like, community and, like, I guess faith, but, like, in a positive light and, like, doing good and stuff like that. There was none of this, like, and if you do something wrong, you will burn in hell. It was like, you should do good because it's good. Yeah. So I think there's also that perspective of, like, I wasn't raised to be afraid of hell. Yeah. I was raised, and my interactions with Christianity were all do good, do the right thing, because that's what you should do, and that's what these people before us did. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me, but yeah, I think it's one of those things where there's just always going to be, like, a deep-seated something or other, even if in my active mind I don't believe it. Yeah. It still deeply exists within me,
Yeah, I mean, fears are very hard to also get over, so, like, even just knowing that and being like, ooh, that's scary. Even if you don't think it's real, it's scary, right?
But yeah, so on that same note, going back to kind of the controversy surrounding this, obviously the church, the Catholic Church especially, was not publicly in favor of this film. But there's a lot of different ways to read this. You could read it as both very pro-religion and very anti-religion, I think, and people have. Frankly, I don't think the movie or the book are trying to communicate one way or the other.
I agree.
I think it's just matter of fact about it.
Yes.
But that said, I mean, there's, again, a lot of ways that you can read it. It's, very much the most obvious, I think, being that you can, this was written at a time where technology was changing quickly. The world was changing as a whole. Everything, globalization was getting bigger and bigger. Like, the more things were coming together and more things were unknown. And it was a move away from tradition and into a more modern age. Yeah. And so I think that this definitely capitalized on some of those, like, kind of fears and uncertainties. And, you could read it as, like, kind of a charge to return back to tradition, as it's the answer. Like, all these medical procedures failed them, and ultimately it was age-old tradition that solved the problem. But I don't know that that's actually what it's trying to communicate.
Well, I also think that's a very interesting take, because also doesn't the age-old tradition fail in a way? The priest dies, and what really happens is Damien takes this weird modern exorcism approach of goading the demon. It's not even a classic exorcism anymore. It's him literally saying, like, all right, come on, show me what you can do. You can mess with a little child.
Pazuzu, you like to wear dresses, you got pigtails.
You got a little pigtail, you got bows in your hair.
Oh, look at pretty little Pazuzu.
Exactly. So it is this weird melding of the two, of this like very modern goading at the end. And, it's not the medicine, and it's not necessarily the exorcism.
Yeah.
In fact, I would argue that at the end of the day, it's the determination and care of one man. I mean, and the mother, obviously, who, like, does not give up.
Yeah.
But, like, it's determination and care that gets this fixed.
It's really noteworthy, too, because he's a man that's lost.
Yes.
When we come upon him in this story, and he just becomes more and more lost throughout, with his mother and everything. And then rather than using that negatively, he basically provides a new life for someone else.
Yeah, he becomes like a martyr.
Right.
And he finds meaning at the end of the book.
Yeah. So it is, it's powerful in that way.
Yeah. I felt exactly the same, though.
Mm-hmm. So, the Catholic Church, like, publicly denounced it. There's been a lot of talk kind of more privately amongst members of the church, like higher-ups in the church, that it actually had a pretty profound positive effect on the church, because it made a lot of people return to the church.
It also actually portrays the church quite well.
It does. They're the heroes in this scenario, right? Like, even if it is very, kind of grotesque in its portrayal of things, like, it's not, and you're having to physically watch, these very anti-religion, demonic, situations. It's not like it's praising it. It's not introducing it as like, this is the answer or something,
You know what's good? Reagan's possession.
Right. So, like, I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's not anti-church. You can argue about whether or not it's pro-church, but it's definitely not anti-church.
Yes.
Right? So I think, they just kind of felt like in the controversy of it that they needed to have that stance. Of course, the Protestant churches just completely were like, this is pure evil. This is the work of the devil. Mm-hmm. If you watch this, you're going to hell, as they're wont to do.
Yeah.
Same reason I couldn't watch Harry Potter growing up. I couldn't play Pokemon. Like, all the, they always find something.
Yeah, I just want to say, for our childhoods, you were not allowed to do things like watch Harry Potter. My parents took me to go see Chicago, the movie where women are dancing around half naked and having sex, in theaters. Yeah. Yeah. And they only made me cover my eyes for the hanging scene.
Yep, very, very different upbringings. Anyway, so, going back to kind of the general reception and stuff. Oh, I also forgot to mention that it did also win Best Sound, which was very well deserved.
Okay.
A lot of kind of funny things throughout the years since it's been released, especially about William Peter Blatty. Just the more I read from him, the more I just love him. So, there's like, for example, there's a plaque at the base of the staircase that was used for the filming of those scenes.
Okay.
That, it's kind of like a historical marker or something that they put up after a lot of people started going to visit it. And he says that is way more important to him than any Academy Award will ever be, because he knows that plaque is going to be there for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, it also shows how influential the movie was and how it'll continue to be influential.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because it is. I mean, again, we're dealing with some just profoundly excellent cinematography here. And so that staircase has some presence to it, you know, like it really is just a perfect visual for that. So it's no doubt that you would want to go see that, you know. You know, going back to some of the situations around the filming, you know, as I said, that both Blair and Burstyn suffered some injuries that would continue to kind of haunt them throughout their life. There were some other crew members that were injured, you know, and most of these things can be brought back to just kind of an unsafe set.
Like negligence.
A little bit of negligence. I mean, I don't know exactly how all these things happen, but like multiple people lost fingers, you know, doing stuff on this film.
What the heck?
There was a huge list of people, which this is not related to the filming at all, but this is what fed into the idea that the film itself was cursed, is that a ton of people in the cast and the crew had family and friends die throughout the filming of this movie. You know, it was a long filming time. So, you know, obviously that's been discussed as like, well, these things happen, you know, over time. People die. It's a thing that happens, but it is a significant amount of people, like more than average, I would think, you know. So it's no surprise that this, you know, fed into things. And like I said, like Friedkin definitely went the route of kind of, you know, trying to stoke the flames on that. Blatty never did. He's quoted as saying, "There is no Exorcist curse. I am the Exorcist curse." And there was a lot of talk about, you know, I think one of the things that really bothered religious people is that, yes, on the surface, it's like the Church of the Heroes, but they also, like, you know, when you start dealing with demonic voices and these sound effects and talking backwards and stuff, you start to get into that realm of like, you know, oh, well, if you play the Beatles' White Album backwards with this thing, it lines up, and, you know, those kinds of, you know, superstitions. A lot of people thought there was some subliminal messaging throughout this movie that is actually trying to, you know, endear you to Satan.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe that's why I'm an atheist now. I don't know. Maybe it's the power of the Exorcist. Of the subliminal messaging. But, you know, when asked about that, Blatty said, "If you can see it, it's not subliminal." Which is often the case of when people call something subliminal messaging. It's very often just very front and center. Yeah. It's not really subliminal. Yeah. So he just has so many great quotes about some of the nonsense surrounding this film. Oh my gosh, Blatty. It's just really, really funny. You know, I always like to talk about some of the critics' response and stuff. So, you know, Ebert loved the movie. Mm-hmm. He thought it was great, even though he did think it was a little schlocky at times. He still gave it 4 out of 4. My girl Pauline Kael did not care for this one, unfortunately. And I based on her review, I wonder if she understands Catholics, like, even remotely. Because she said that it's surely the religious people who should be the most offended by this movie. You know, other people can laugh it off as garbage. She thought it was total schlock garbage. But are American Catholics really willing to see their faith turned into a horror show? As if Catholicism is not purely built on horror as its core philosophy.
Have you ever met someone who's Catholic and they talk about Catholic guilt?
It is only based on guilt and fear. Yeah. Like, that's what they do. Pauline, have you ever met a Catholic person? That's so funny. I just thought those were really, really funny things.
So that's pretty great. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then I just, you know, I briefly want to talk about kind of we can skip over The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. We don't need to talk about that.
Maybe we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, maybe so. It came out 4 years after the original and was, you know, kind of somewhat overseen by Blatty, but it's very poorly received, and I did not watch it for this conversation. But I did watch The Exorcist 3.
Oh, cool.
Again, written and directed by Blatty himself. It's a very interesting sequel. Mm-hmm. So if you just if you took every other piece out of the equation and just said, how does it work as a sequel to this film, The Exorcist? Not good.
Okay.
But if you treat it on its own, it's actually a very good, like, supernatural mystery film. So this, again, is just pure Kinderman detective work. So Kinderman returns in this movie. He's played by George C. Scott. So he's much more kind of serious as a character. The characters don't necessarily match up. But it's just like a really interesting, like, you know, it was released in 1990, so it's quite a bit afterwards. And it's, I mean, I was kind of fascinated by kind of the things that it was doing with that genre that early, because it reminded me a lot of, like, later stage David Fincher movies, you know, like over a decade later. Like, it has a lot shared with Zodiac, which is obvious given that they are centering it around this Gemini killer. It's very much based on Zodiac. Also, the Zodiac killer stated that in letters that he liked The Exorcist, so
that
nice. Was, I think, part of the reasoning for bringing that into it. So I won't go fully into this, but it just, like, it really leans into that kind of, you know, detective work. Like, it's very dark. It feels very supernatural. Same thing as, you know, kind of going through the medical procedures. Like, he is aware of, like, these spiritual things, but other people are not. So he's kind of going through these motions of trying to discover this, like, bout of serial killer, you know, deaths that are happening. And I don't know, I found it really, really well done and kind of fun. And it's interesting because they bring back the character of Karis. Like, he's, like, after he got possessed, he, like, possesses someone else, and it brought Karis with him.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So he's inside the body of Brad Dourif.
Okay.
Who you may know as Grima Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Among other things, he was also in a bunch of David Lynch movies, but he is just absolutely excellent in this movie. Like, there's kind of he's, like, in prison, and he's, like, you know, mumbling, and they think he's not the killer at first, but then he reveals himself to be the killer. And it's just this really kind of great back and forth scene between Kinderman and him, and then this priest as well. They bring Father Dyer back into the mix as well.
Nice.
So it really stands on its own, but it brings in a bunch of the lore and the backstory from the universe. And I just thought it was, like, a really fun watch. Like, it's not a perfect sequel, but it's a good addition. Like, it's very worthwhile.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, we could certainly, like, have a full episode about the couple of sequels. There's also a prequel called Dominion that was released quite a bit later, directed by Paul Schrader, that we could also discuss as well. That's a little bit. Unfortunately, the second one is kind of the least well regarded. But
yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, these other ones are pretty worthwhile. So.
All right. Nice. Yeah, maybe we'll do something about that.
And then, you know, we kind of discussed, like, how we feel like it deals with the church and stuff. Those are the obvious themes. You know, I don't want to go into all the possible readings of this movie. I've already kind of mentioned that there's a billion ways you could read it. Many of them I disagree with. Some I find interesting. So, you know, we won't really go into that, but you know, there is an element of it that's, like, talking about, you know, trying to escape certain harsh truths and realities of the world. And again, there was a lot of political upheaval during this time and stuff. So I think there are elements of kind of, like, all that society was going throughout the movie.
Yeah. But
ultimately, all of these different takes are going to come from a very personal level, which I also think makes the whole thing very interesting, because it's, again, it is kind of matter of fact in the way it presents itself. And it's something that people seem to be able to project a lot of themselves onto, which I think also is part of the reason that it's kind of stood the test of time.
Yeah, you can find something to relate to in it no matter what.
Yeah, which, again, some of these theories are just kind of batshit crazy, but it's interesting, you know. So if this is, you know, something that interests you, it's definitely worth kind of delving into some of those, even just for entertainment value.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, this is literally like we could do a podcast on its own about theories and the research and conversation about this movie.
I read
it's
all
pretty
kinds
wild.
of things. I read like things that are like, oh, this is all about how the patriarchy is good and like stuff like that. I've read like this is a feminist treatise, like all sorts of different stuff. It's just it's crazy, but it's really interesting.
That's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what do we think, Alan? Is the book better than the movie?
I think they're like right on par with each other. I think they both do exactly what they're trying to do. They both lean into their mediums. It's with the author being so directly involved. It's like, what else do we think is going to happen here? Not that it always turns out that way when the author's involved. But
Stephen King.
but as we said up front, like Blatty was no novice to filmmaking, so I think that also helped. And again, he ultimately got the pick of who to direct the movie.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, him and Friedkin got along very well. There was, there's plenty of discussion about some disagreements they had. In fact, they even sued each other at one point later on down the road, but they got over it and they're friends again. So
okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
I'd call it a draw personally.
I guess the one thing I would say is that you mentioned that in the movie maybe there is some implications that Chris is not always a good mother or is a little bit absent.
Well, again, I think that's one of those kind of personal readings.
Yeah.
It's not actually present in the movie.
Yeah, but I think that in the book it's harder to argue that. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that, like, the intention is maybe gotten a little bit across a little bit better in the book. That exploration of Kinderman is really cool in the book, but again, I guess it's not necessary. It's a really tough call for this one, so I think we'll give Blatty a draw here. And
that's the thing, he wins either way, so
so we'll give it to Blatty.
The winner of this podcast, William Peter Blatty.
You decide which title that is, but yeah, I guess.
He is the Exorcist curse.
He is the curse. Well, I think that about sums up our thoughts, but before we sign off, Alan, it's time for the tagline quiz.
I've been promised a challenging one this week.
So I forgot about the tagline quiz until moments before this.
Of course you did.
Which I always do.
Classic.
So, all right, let's do this one. Ready?
Yes?
The tagline is, act like you own the place.
Come on.
What?
Parasite.
Yes! 2019 dark comedy psychological thriller with Song Kang-ho, Lee Sun-kyun, and Cho Yo-jung. I believe that's how those are pronounced. Greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan.
Just a phenomenal movie.
One
of the all-time greats.
Very good movie.
Like, truly blessed that we have gotten that in the last decade.
Yeah. I have some critiques about the end of that movie.
No, there's no critiques.
I think it's a
perfect film.
It's a nearly perfect film.
It's a perfect film.
Well, thank you to whoever is keeping score for Alan, so he gets another point.
Man, I am on a freaking roll.
Yeah, I really do need to try to remember next time. That's all for now. Thank you for listening to In Contrast. I'm Nisha.
And I'm Alan.
Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. It really does help us out. You can find us at In Contrast Pod on Instagram and Blue Sky. Next up, we'll rate, review, and talk about Frankenstein.
Spooky month continues.
Just in time for Thanksgiving. We're going to do more scary stuff.
We will give thanks to our Lord and Savior, Mary Shelley.
Yes, the queen, the originator of sci-fi, Mary Shelley.
That's right.
This one might come out late, might come out on time.
We're still trying to decide. Obviously, this is centered around the new release of Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
And we are trying to decide. That comes out a week after our normal release date. So we may do that as a bonus episode and only discuss the previously existing adaptations.
Yes.
Or you might get a surprise and we'll be a week late and discuss all of it. So
yes.
Tune in for that. We'll have either 1 or 2 episodes, so there's really no way to lose here.
Yep, but we will have an episode in November, so if we're late, it is coming.
Yes.
Just hang tight. But we will see you next time, some point in November, where we will ask the important question, is the book really better than the movie?
Movies, in this case.
Movies.
Until next time.